Amy Kame, thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you on the Uncontested Investing Studio. You're fresh off the trade show floor at NPLA conference in Atlantic City. How'd that go for you?
It was really good. So I hope I get through this without losing my voice.
Yes.
A lot of long days, a lot of really good conversations, but it's just good to see everyone in person. I mean, we spend a lot of time on Zoom calls and Teams calls throughout the year, right? So it's good to have those conversations in person, and there's nothing like just, showing up in person, having those face-to-face conversations, building relationships, and that's what's important. So it's fun. It's a, long 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
I think everybody that's attended to a trade show is screaming at the computer right now. How is she doing this? But networking always comes up. We like having conversations through the lens of a real estate investor. So, how important is that networking aspect for you? I know there's a little bit of fun involved, obviously, but a lot of business goes down, a lot of forging of connections, and you kind of become friends on the road with these people. You see them by the end of the year, maybe 5-6 times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when we talk to new companies who are thinking about either joining the NPLA as the association or just coming to the conference, we always say the NPLA is a very tight-knit group of professionals. Like, they collaborate with each other. Even though they're competitors, they collaborate. And really that's built from showing up in person to these trade shows, hanging out, going to dinners, getting to know people on a personal level. And so it's just something that you have to commit to. It's important for growing your businesses and then for your teams too. So within the NPLA, we work with so many different companies, lenders, service providers. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right things by them. And so it's important to have those conversations and build relationships.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So your title, Chief Strategy and Growth Officer for NPLA. But before that, you were a D1 basketball player. You played professionally. For those that are recurring listeners, they know how much I love sports. And if there's even a tiny decimal point of a chance that sports can get brought into the episode, I love bringing it up. So it's going to come to the forefront for us today, though, because, what can you recall or recount from those times that has helped you with your leadership, your strategy, your organization even? There's got to be so many memories and so many useful skills that come from the basketball court.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since I was like 2 years old, I think I was holding a basketball in my hand. I would take it everywhere with me. But I was lucky. I mean, my parents were coaches. My siblings all played. A few of my siblings played in college as well. So I was kind of like born to play sports. But I learned so much from it. And I don't think I wasn't always a great leader, even when I was young. I'm the youngest in my family, and it was like, I have to scrap for everything that I have, right? But I learned that as I got older, especially in college, and what it takes to be a really good leader. And something like I take away from basketball every day is that the best leaders just make everyone around them better all the time. And so it's not about, so in my role now in a leadership position, it's about building up everyone around me, my teammates, the companies that we work with in the NPLA. It's making sure that everyone around you, they're the ones that are finding success, and you enjoy their success even more than your own.
Yeah, and it kind of, you learn by doing, right? There's nothing like a senior on a high school basketball team or college team, a captain of a professional team, right? Those are the real situations where you can look back and be like, oh, wow, I was kind of building up to this moment without even knowing it. And your story is funny because watching a lot of sports growing up, there was this NCAA ad where it was like, I forget the number, but it was maybe like 95% of NCAA athletes go professional in something else. And, you have like doctors, surgeons, lawyers, and you kind of slam dunked on that ad and did a little bit of both.
Yeah, I had a few years where I could do, I mean, it was fun, like being able to play professionally. That was an amazing experience. But then coming back and being able to utilize that experience and then going into transitioning into the real world, as they say, sometimes it's difficult when you are an athlete for so long and that becomes your identity. It's trying to kind of move away from that. But I think I've realized in the last, especially moving into this role, that has really built who I am. And so I mean, even going through very stressful situations or dealing with difficult people, those things just kind of come a little bit easier to me. I mean, when there's chaos around or something bad happens, it's like, okay, well, how are we going to approach this? I approach that how I would going into a game or going into a final timeout and there's 10 seconds left and you have to execute. I mean, it's like, to me, stressful situations, that's how
No, it's great. Who am I going to pass to? Who's going to take the shot? What's the backup plan if plan A doesn't go right? All good things. So as you transitioned into the lending industry, what really enticed you about it? What did you pull from your basketball background? Was there a perfect match there? Was it a happy accident? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I guess we could say happy accident. It's interesting. I had a connection in grad school, and she knew a family that was they were running a private lending conference, and then they were just starting the NPLA, so the National Private Lenders Association. And to me, if I'm being completely honest, it really wasn't about lending at that time. I was kind of in grad school, I was more so in the startup culture in that world. And then I saw the NPLA as something that I had the opportunity to help build. And so that was what excited me. And after about 3 or 4 months in, it was something that was new every day. I was learning so much in such a short amount of time. And I knew this was something that I wanted to be doing long term. I knew about this much going in, and I now know this much, but it's fun. I mean, I get to learn every single day. I get to work with a lot of different people from across the country in all different aspects of lending. So I guess starting out, it was really just about having the opportunity to build something.
Yeah. I appreciate the honesty there, and I think it's so important to hear that answer as a potential real estate investor, somebody that's very new to it, because it can be overwhelming. I came from a similar situation where I got hired maybe 4 years ago, didn't know a lick about real estate, and you do learn as you grow. There's an important part of finding the right company and the right fit that can help you and let you take that time, but also give you the tools to learn at a quicker pace. So I think real estate investors can learn from a story like yours where you don't have to have it all figured out day one, but you have to have the right people around you and you have to be committed to the growth of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I think like in my time, I worked for a smaller, family office. They were running a conference and it was a small team. And then John Hornick, who owns, Private Lender Law, Private Lender Title, he ended up purchasing both of our companies. And through that transition, I saw much more opportunity for growth, and not only myself, but our companies and the ability for us to expand. And so that's, to me now, taking on this new role for strategy and growth, that is something that's just so much more dynamic and fun. And we can go in so many different directions and have really strategic partnerships with all of our companies. And so that, I find myself very lucky that I was put in that situation. And then, John purchased our companies and we've been able to grow, and we have so many more plans for the organization.
Yeah. So speaking of plans, there's got to be some challenges that come up with that. So when you hear private lending, it's essentially the non-bank lending sector is what it falls under. Yep. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys are seeing as you try to grow, as you're developing these strategies and plans? How are you combating those challenges, meeting them head on?
Yeah. So just coming from the conference, I would say the biggest challenge, or what's in the top of, everybody's mind right now, is fraud. And that can present itself in so many different ways across our industry. And so for us in the NPLA, because we have lenders, capital providers, real estate service providers, brokers, it's kind of the whole network within the non-bank lending sector put together. For us, it's really important that we provide the information that our members need to be aware of. And so when we're talking about fraud, we try to make sure that our members understand, the risks that are out there, but then what resources they have to help them. So within the NPLA, the sharing of information is probably the most important thing, the ability for all of our members to collaborate and come together and share that knowledge. And so big challenge of fraud right now and how it presents itself is just making sure that we can help find companies that make transactions more secure, help putting together, whether we're talking about title companies, appraisers, bad borrowers, making sure that our members know about that and sharing that information. So that's our role in the NPLA, is making sure that our members know what's out there.
Yeah, and that's the catch-22 of technology, right? It's given us so many things, but for our industry specifically, the opportunity for fraud now is rampant. It's phone calls, it's emails, it's text messages. It's so important that, people are aware of it, they understand it, they know how to prevent it, because what it can do to people's livelihoods, businesses, even, as deep
reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And it can go as deep as families. Like, there's so many layers to it. It's pretty wild to take a step back and think about. So that I imagine that's got to be at the top of the priority list almost every day for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have 5 different panels at our conference, and fraud probably came up in every single one of them, even if the conversation wasn't about risk management or anything. But it's a topic that's at the forefront of everyone's mind. So we have to do our part to make sure that everybody's coming together and collaborating, because again, like you said, companies can't just do that on their own. And so sharing best practices and that information, that's really important.
That's awesome. Another topic that's at the forefront of a lot of people's mind, especially real estate investors, which is the core of our listeners, is making money. So our first segment of the episode is going to be the Money Making Minute. Now, this can be an investment strategy, an app, a skill that you may have developed over the years, or just a daily part of your routine, a habit. What do you think attributes to some of your success that helps you be more successful? And, what can our listeners take with them, either institute it tomorrow, next week, throughout the course of the rest of the year in 2024 here? Do you have a tip for our Money Making Minute?
Thing that I do every morning when I wake up is I make sure to check my phone, check my email, put out any fires that happened the night before, make sure the team is all on track, and then I make sure to spend at least an hour at the gym or go on a run, clear my head, make sure that I'm ready for the rest of the day and anything that comes at me. And I know that I at least had 1 hour to myself to clear my mind, but my strategy is going to get a workout in, but that can be anything. It can be meditating, taking time for yourself, going to yoga, whatever that is, but making sure that you have at least 1 hour a day where you are taking time for yourself.
I think that's extremely important. It comes up in a lot of episodes where this industry is so grueling. You're worried about the finances, taking care of your family, running your own business. Yep. There's so many things that fly through somebody's mind that's in this industry every day, right? So having that physical health in check as well just makes you that much more prepared to take it on. And actually, I think he was trying to get a rise out of people. You can never tell with social media these days, but it reminded me of a post that I saw on LinkedIn the other day. And essentially it was, you can't be a loser if you wake up every day at 5 a.m. and go to the gym. And it's just, it is funny. It is funny.
It's funny, but yeah.
Exactly. But when he explained the point and got a lot of comments and back and forth, essentially he was saying what that does for you is it sets habits in motion throughout the rest of your day. You feel better. You eat better because you already went to the gym. So you keep that workout in mind, and that attitude and that, positive energy that you get from the gym kind of translates into the rest of your day. Now, he did preface it by saying you can be a successful night owl. There's plenty of people that do that as well. Because I think he saw the firestorm that was coming in his LinkedIn comment section. But he's like, if you decide to take that leap and start the day with a workout very early, the trickle effect that it has with the rest of your day, you can just see that magnify over weeks, months, years. So
it's interesting because I think this has been part of my life since I was a little kid. Like, it was, you wake up, it's part of the discipline of being an athlete, right? Like, so that when I read that question, I was like, that's just something that is normal to me, or like growing up, that was just expected. And then once something's expected and it becomes a habit, it's just like, this is a part of my day, is being up as early as you can, 5 a.m. That's a normal time. Wake up, get to the gym or get a workout in and make yourself better every day. That was like part of just being an athlete and
being a student athlete. I mean, those days can be you
grueling.
Look at some of those schedules, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't envy them at all.
Yeah, I look back at that and I'm like, life's not as grueling.
Awesome. That's a great tip. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get a workout in.
Do some push-ups.
Our sponsors are going to step in here. We'll be back right after a break. Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insights and knowledge from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information right at your fingertips. Visit reiinc.com to elevate your real estate investment game today. And we're back with Amy Kame, NPLA's Chief Strategy and Growth Officer. So let's get into it, Amy. When we're talking about vetting leads, finding partnerships that benefit your company as well as the potential partner, and ensuring that the collaboration is a success, what's your process like when you're really actually doing strategy and growth, right? Because, it's one thing to have the title, but on a day-to-day basis, what do the vetting of the leads look like for you?
Yeah. So my background in school, a lot of it's research. So I spend a lot of time researching companies, researching the people who lead these companies. But for me, it's really about making sure that our shared values, that they're aligned. And long term, right? So in the NPLA, or if we're talking about private lender law, private lender type, any of our organizations, we have to make sure that our values long term are going to be aligned. And so we don't get into these relationships lightly. We make sure that we're doing the right thing by all of our members as well. So if we are representing lenders from across the country, it's really important to us that we have the right partners, the right long-term partners.
I think that's important to hear too for investors that may be considering partnering, going into a deal, whatever the case may be. For you, I'm sure it would be enticing or taking the easy route to just, let's lock up these partnerships. NPLA has a great reputation within the space. I'm sure if you cast it out a net, you could drag in a number of different partners, but to actually achieve the growth that you want to in your role, those partnerships have to make sense. And I'm sure there's a lot of hours that go into combing through and making sure, okay, not only are we getting quantity or not, we're not just getting quantity and sacrificing quality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a lot of times you'll find organizations that will just throw a logo on a website or something. And for us, it's not for marketing purposes, right? It's to really help grow the organization. Mm-hmm. And so, and represent our members at the end of the day. So we make sure that it's not just a marketing ploy, along those lines. And we try to make sure that we're doing the right things by our members and really vet all of our partners. And so that's important for us legislatively, I would say. Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, and making sure that we partner with a lot of different state associations that have boots on the ground and they know what's going on in their state. We are a national organization, so it's really hard to cover. I mean, we have lenders all across the country, but it's really hard for us to cover ground legislatively. And all the regulatory challenges that come as well. We need to know what's happening before it actually happens. And so having those conversations and with other associations, state associations, we have a partnership with the Mortgage Bankers Association. They have a really robust network of the legislative affairs team and lobbyists, and we meet with them monthly. So it's really important for us to have those partnerships and relationships so then we can represent our membership base.
Yeah. Perfect. So we talked about skills from the hardwood and how they translated into your professional role, but you also put in work in the classroom as well. I like talking about unique degrees when they come up because I got a boring journalism degree.
That's not boring.
I know.
It's not boring.
Basic, I guess, maybe is the right word. But I see that you have a master's in leadership studies. So how do you recall or remember your studies, what they instilled in you and how they translate even today? From an academic standpoint, you can think back how many years it's been and you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. Whatever professor so-and-so taught me is still clicking and working today, relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a couple things that I use every day too now from that degree. One is in this industry specifically, we work with so many different generations of people, right? Like we have boomers, we have millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, like all across the board.
Can't keep track of them.
No, can't keep track of them. But what's so important as a leader is knowing what motivates each person. And, you know, at the end of the day, like stereotypes sometimes are right. And knowing that like, okay, I have to approach this conversation or this person very differently. And that what motivates them is very different from what motivates someone else. And so for me, that was a big takeaway from leadership studies from that degree, was knowing how to have those conversations and get the best out of people, get the most out of people. But then I think my favorite class that I took was in behavioral economics, and just learning why people make the decisions that they make, and then companies as an end goal, right? Why do companies make certain decisions? But really understanding people and why they're making those decisions, and then what leads them to that, I think is so important. And I take that knowledge and understanding every day into so many different conversations I'm having with people.
Yeah, there's so many professional landscapes where that is relevant in works, but really you're queued yourself up to be successful in this industry, because a lot of people talk about the bottom line and making money, but one thing that it's always brought back to is that it's a people's business.
Yeah.
It's the managing of relationships. So if you can master that, I think you really put yourself in a position where you can be successful, have that impact, and not only be able to see problems before they come up, but offer solutions and allow people to reach a potential that they didn't even know was possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing people, building relationships. I mean, that's this whole industry, right? Even like my boss, John Hornick, he's like, I built my whole law firm on showing up at these conferences, talking in front of people, sharing your knowledge, providing value. I mean, that's, our members understand that. I mean, we meet every 2 weeks on Zoom, and we have 50, 60, 70 companies that come together, and they all want to provide value and share information. And I think that's so important.
For sure. And I'm sure they all want to close deals at one point or
Yes,
another.
they do.
So I love a good segue. I might have forced that one a little bit. But for our next segment, we have deal breaker, deal maker. So pretty straightforward here. What causes deals in this industry to break down? What are deal flows lacking? What are potential individuals lacking that, from, far away, you're like, oh no, this probably isn't going to work. And then conversely, you can see success coming from a mile away because of this. So that would be the deal breaker. So I'll let you take the floor again and go through our deal breaker, deal maker.
A deal breaker or deal maker that I find is listening. I think it's so important in this industry that we have the ability to listen to others. We have a lot of very smart, intelligent people in our industry who know the industry very well. This has worked well for me, is sitting back, sometimes taking a back seat, listening, that's verbal, nonverbal, and making sure that you're truly understanding what someone is communicating to you, asking questions. But listening to me is probably the most important thing in making sure that a deal gets done successfully.
I think that's a great answer. Listening and hearing are two very different things. Is there anything that you can recall maybe that helped you hone that skill? Because at the end of the day, listening is a skill. There's work that needs to be put in, as you mentioned, with the nonverbal cues even. There's ways to actively help you listen better. Can you share some insight on that? Have you looked into that at all, done research maybe?
Yeah. I my own personal research. Yeah. I mean, I think like when I was in college and I was the captain on the team, best player, it was like I was a big talker, right? Like I think I developed listening so much more when I was playing professionally and I was playing with some of the best players in the world, Olympians. It was like I am taking a step back and I am going to soak in as much information as I can. And I took that into then going to grad school. In my coaching role, I took that. I mean, to me, it was listening is something that I think has helped me grow the most in my career too, is then transitioning into this industry. I knew that I could be successful because I could sit back and I can take in information, really read and understand what our members' needs are, and then be able to take that information and execute for them. And so that's really the role that I took on in the first few years in this industry was, wow, there are a lot of very smart people with there's so much good information that they're sharing, and someone needs to be able to execute that information. There's so many great ideas. And so I kind of took that role on at the beginning of the NPLA, was making sure that we're executing on all the important ideas that are being shared.
Throughout the stages of your career or life athletics, it seems like you've been pretty easily rising to a leadership role. Talk about, being the best player on the teams, trying to lead by example, coaching, and now even at NPLA, you're rising to a leadership role there. If you could give advice to people that want to achieve the success that you have, or make that transition from a high-level employee that's pretty successful at a company, and the next step for them is leadership, is there anything that you can give to them that they can take into their daily lives?
Yeah, I think to me, a big part of it is to be a lead, and not everybody wants to be in a leadership role, right? Because to me, it's about getting the most out of people. And a good leader to me enjoys everyone else's success more than their own. Mm-hmm. And so I found that transitioning from being an athlete and then coaching, and even just the couple of years that I was coaching, I think so many people would come up to me and they would say, don't you miss it? Like people would come to our games, and I was coaching at the university that I played for. And so everyone would come up and say, don't you miss it? And for a while I did, but then after a few months, it was more important for me to see the success that the team was having. That made me more excited than even when I was on the court playing. And so I think that's really important as a leader, is making sure that you are making everyone else around you better, and then you are letting them fly, right? Like to me, you're excited for them. And if you have that in you, then I think you'll be a great leader. And if you don't, then that's okay. You can be an amazing employee. You can have your role and be very successful, and you don't have to step into that leadership role. But to me, I think that's really important.
Now, is that something that, because you were a coach, that was kind of forced onto you over time? Did you just kind of naturally have that while you were coaching? Because that is a tough thing to grasp, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people just zone in on their success and their opportunities and getting ahead. Yeah. And there's some credence to that. That's important.
Yeah.
But you're, as you stated, taking that next level and actually being a leader and almost leveling up as a person is being happy and being comfortable with other people succeeding. Did that come naturally for you, or did coaching help a lot with that?
Coaching helped a lot with that. Definitely. Yeah. No, I mean, for me, I was like the most competitive person in the room. I just wanted to win. So when I was an athlete, I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to win. I wanted to be the best. But yeah, coaching, it teaches you something totally different. And so now when I look at some of our team members who are just starting, and whether that's in sales or marketing or operations, whatever it is, being able to sit down and teach them, and then let them take it on themselves, and then seeing how happy they are when they complete a task, or, we just got back from the conference, and seeing how happy the whole team is on what they created, and giving them all of that credit because they really built something themselves. That makes me very happy.
Awesome. And I don't want to stop. It's been a great conversation so far. Thank you for sharing the insights, but our sponsors do need a little bit of time here. So we'll take a time out, quick break, and we'll be back to wrap it up with Amy Kame. Thank you so much for joining us on Uncontested Investing today.
Thank you.
Whether you are pursuing long-term or short-term ventures, RCN Capital has a wide range of loan programs that will help you reach your financial goals. We have loan programs for fix and flips, long-term rentals, new construction, and even multifamily properties. And don't forget to ask about our Platinum program for very experienced investors. To learn more about our loan programs, click the link in the bio or send an email to info@rcncapital.com today. So we're back with Amy Kame on Uncontested Investing today. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure everybody that's tuned in has taken something with them today that they can be successful in the future with. So we really appreciate the time. One of the other hats you wear is being a managing director at NPLA. So I'm wondering, goals and priorities for you have to be at the forefront of your mind every morning. You talked about waking up at 5 a.m. and putting out fires. I'm sure, you've got goals that you want to set right when you wake up. You probably wake up thinking about this. So what's comes to the forefront of your mind for goals and priorities?
Yeah, for the National Private Lenders Association, I think for us, it's about advancement of the industry. And so I always think about it as what's the issue or fire in front of us? And then, what's the long-term issue that we're trying, to handle. And I think we've done a good job of bringing together a lot of great minds in the industry, a lot of powerful people running, big lending companies. We have a lot of smaller regional lenders as well. And for us, it's about bringing everyone together, advancing the industry, and whether that's, best practices that we're implementing or ethical standards, that's something that's our long-term goal, making sure the industry is more institutional and professionalized. And I think it's come, a very long way in the last few years, especially.
Regulations is another big part of the industry as well. So how are you monitoring that or ensuring that people that you work with are holding up their end of the bargain? We've talked about it a lot, but reputation does matter. And you guys have worked really hard to create a good one. So I'm sure, there's times in your day where you're really thinking about what are other people doing to really bring up their reputation and the industry's reputation as a whole.
Yeah. And there's a couple things we do through the NPLA. And I think I had mentioned this before, but we meet every 2 weeks with all of the companies in the NPLA. We meet on Zoom, and that's something that's been so important in the growth of our industry, especially for smaller, more, regional lenders. And they might get information, a month later after something has happened. That's important for them to have that real-time update. And during COVID, we were meeting every week. And so, we kind of spaced it out a little bit. Maybe if something exciting happens again, we'll have to come back together every week and meet. But, if something big happens in the industry, the regional bank failures that happen, we made sure that we provided a platform where members could come together and share information and collaborate. And some of our smaller lenders could understand some of the changes that were being made from the more large national lenders. And so to me, that's a big piece of it, is making sure everyone's on the same page, rowing in the right direction. Yes. And that's the same with regulation too, and making sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of ethical standards, because that can make a very, very big impact on whether or not our industry will be regulated or not. And so we want to make sure that we're regulating ourselves, that we're upholding these ethical standards and these best practices. And in order to do that, we have to be able to share this information and make sure everybody's on the same page.
There's also a lot of trends that happen in the industry too. It's very, it can change with the flip of a switch, essentially. So how hard is juggling that with, a regulation that may have been in place 4 or 5 months ago and today could be very different? Is that a problem for you guys? Does that come up a lot? Is that a continuing challenge that you're always working against?
Yeah, luckily it doesn't come up a lot, right? But we are prepared that if something happens or there's a regulation or, a bill that's passed, we make sure we know about it before that happens. And then we know how to approach it with the lenders or with our membership base. And so it's nice. We have John Hornick, the lawyer, he owns a law firm. So, and we have partners too. Like I said, the Mortgage Bankers Association, we're partners with California Mortgage Association. We have, on the West Coast, we have Wright, Finlay, and Zach, and they handle a lot of our West Coast, updates, legislative updates. So we can't do it alone. Like I said, even though we're a national organization, we have a lot of partners, and we all collaborate and help each other because we all have the same interests at the end of the day.
Yep. John Hornick is a great ace up the sleeve to have for sure. Yeah. It was fun talking to him. He's on a past episode of Uncontested Investing. So really appreciated speaking with him. I want to bring it back to sports because that's where we started, but there is a reason for it. I want to ask you about your best moment on the court, either as a player or as a coach. I imagine it's probably as a player, but I ask this because maybe the success, the excitement, the joy that you felt in that moment something like that can stick in your brain and even subconsciously propel you to levels of success. So I kind of want to have you share your moment, and maybe people that are listening can relate and be like, let's leave on a positive note here with a great moment from your athletic career.
Okay. So this might be a little bit of a different answer than you're expecting, but when I think about, gosh, I had so many amazing moments on the court, like in college especially, just so many fun moments and big wins, and those memories, I mean, they don't ever leave you, right? But I grew up, I think my favorite moments on a basketball court is just growing up with my siblings in the driveway. Like, we spent every single night there together. I have 3 siblings. I'm the youngest. We played a lot of 2-on-2. There's a lot of bloody lips.
Going
going at it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
An accident, I swear.
Oh, no, I was never. Yeah. I threw a lot of elbows. I had to. I'm the youngest.
Yep,
I had to scrap for it, right? Yep. But I think for me, that's where I learned to be competitive, and that's where I learned to work hard. Really, that was instilled in me from when I was young. And so, favorite memory, just growing up, in the driveway playing basketball. I mean,
those
just the best. Yeah.
I did something similar. I didn't play college basketball. I'll preface it with that. But from a very young age, I love sports, and it was like, okay, I'm probably not going to make it to the NBA, the NFL. But I always wanted to be a broadcaster. That's why I went to school for journalism. I broadcasted some games in college and still do a little bit as a side hustle.
That's fun,
but in the driveway, I would be, passes the ball to so-and-so. He passes the ball. UConn's my team. So I would go through those players and just
you've had a good...
He scores a 3-2-1. So I think those little moments, kind of...
Yeah, they built up.
Exactly. They had that effect and really impacted where I wanted to go with my career. So
hey, look at you now. You were preparing for this moment when you were 5 years old in the driveway.
I can relate. Oh, the lights go. We had a little lamppost in the front, so you were playing until 8 or 9. Your parents were like, all right, I think it's time to come in now. And I just watched a great documentary on Amazon Prime about Roger Federer. It was a really cool inside look on the last 2 weeks of his professional career before he retired. And he says so many times in that documentary, I was just a little kid from Switzerland playing tennis with my friends. I never thought I'd become the best tennis player
in the world,
that ever lived, that people, centuries from now are going to talk about Roger Federer. So those can have, those moments can be a huge impact and lead to success later on in life.
Yeah, and I think it's just, like you said, you were doing it all the time. I was doing it all the time. It wasn't like, you were interested in something for a little moment of time and then you move on to something else. It's like you put in time, day after day, hour after hour, right? Doing what you love, and then that builds over time into something that you can really find success in.
And it doesn't have to be athletics. It's whatever
anything.
Whatever that passion is driving you towards, just hone in on that and capitalize on that, because that is powerful. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation from start to finish. I know you've had a long week from the conference, so I'll let you go get some rest.
Thank you.
Before your flight back across to the West Coast. But our listeners learned so much from you today. I appreciated this one. So this is Nate Zielinski for Uncontested Investing. We will see you all in the next one.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook, and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.